Check, check.
Okay.
Okay, welcome to the December 9th meeting for the RSU 14 Withdrawal Committee. First order of business is approve the minutes of the October 28th meeting.
Did we get those?
Yes, we did.
Oh, that's right, they came out the next day.
They came out the next day.
Right. Make a motion to approve.
Give it a second.
Oh, second, sorry. I wasn't listening.
All those in favor?
Oh,
Opposed?
that's right, you weren't here.
Okay, report of the subcommittees. Marshall, you want to go first?
Please. Tonight's discussion is limited to what it's going to cost for secondary education. Secondary is also defined as high school. There's two components to this fraction, so to speak. And the first one is the number of students. Currently, this is the class of 2020. We have 190 students, high school level students, 166 at Wyndham and 24 in other schools, whatever it may be, North Yarmouth, Hebron, whatever. So if we take that and we project out where those students are going to be in the class of 2021 and 2022, class of 21, we move the seniors out, and in the 8th grade right now, this little number down here, we have 45 8th graders. We move 39 into Wyndham High School for this example, and 6 over to Choice. And the reason I chose 6 is because we have 24 now in 4 grades. 6 is a nice round average. So that will give us 186 high school students in the class of 2021. And using the same methodology, it'll give us 182 in the class of 2022. This is the first year to project the costs. This starts July 1, 2021. Okay? Pretty simple. Any questions on that slide? Okay. Now we'll get into a little bit more interesting stuff. Raymond's share of the version 6 budget, which is the Wyndham budget approved by the voters, and that's their operating budget, is $10,418,000. The total number of Raymond students we have in all grades is 600. We have 166 in the high school, 24 in other high school choice, 176 at Jordan Small, 233 at Raymond Elementary, and 1 out of district placement. So if we do the simple math, the cost per student now becomes $17,363. Multiplying that out or dividing out, whichever method you want to choose, you take 190 high school students, multiply it by the per student costs, and we get 3.299 million for high school, class 20. We've made assumptions that we take up everything by 4%. Last year's growth at the RSU budget was 4.9%. I feel a little bit better about 4% as an estimate. That would make the next year's Raymond share 10.8 million. It would make the per student cost 18,000, and then the Raymond high school secondary cost would be 3.353 million. Taking that out to the class of 2022, there would be no Raymond share of the Wyndham budget. We would have 593 high school students, or total students. Now that number seems a little bit low, but there's been an upward tick in the school registration, and I think there's 50 Ks coming in this year. And there's a couple other classes in the lower grades that have 50 in them, so it's on its way up a little bit, slight. So
See,
even though it's showing it's going
With
down.
daycare, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
there's a, yeah.
Okay, so a loss of 7 students, we're gonna pick that right back up in, I think, about another 3 or 4 years. The state tuition rate down here is 10.723 thousand. We taking that up by 4% per year and then another 4%. We get to this number, which is 11,598. That's an estimate somewhere between 11.3 and 11.9, I think somebody else came up with, so we picked them, that's the middle of the road. And we take that and we multiply that by the number of high school students we will have, and that gives us 2.110 million in high school costs. Any questions on that?
I have a question. Are we allowed to ask questions?
Sure.
But you have to come up to the thing and identify yourself.
Caitlin LaCase,
Yep.
Tenny Hill Road.
Yep.
Why are we, I guess I don't understand if it costs, $18,000 to send kids to Wyndham, why we think it will cost considerably less to not?
Because we are not paying the full freight of the Wyndham tuition. We're only paying the state tuition rate for high school.
But won't we also incur any other costs? Does that include other?
I have one more slide to
Oh.
go, and there will be some of the cost, but not a whole lot.
Okay.
Okay, and I think you're talking about high school athletics and things like that.
I
That
don't know what those costs are.
that would come into the tuition, okay? Administration has assured us that our tuition rate will drop down to the state rate. Okay, which I've taken up from today, 4% plus 4%. That's how I got that 11.5, okay? So you can see that's a dramatic increase, and it's not really gonna fall off that deeply, but it's going to fall off.
Marshall, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there any discussion on changing the formula that Raymond pays to the RSU right now?
Not that I'm aware of.
There has been. Chris
Yeah.
Howe brought it up before Sandy Prince left. It expires 2022, I think.
Right.
2020.
If we,
2020.
So they-
It was 6 years, I think, if I recall.
And he
5
said he
years.
recommends reviewing it and taking a look at possibly changing it. It's in one of his, if you watch one of the meetings that he had, he said it publicly, yeah.
if we got away from a real estate-based formula to a student count formula, we'd be saving a lot of money.
I mean, the problem with the current formula is
Right.
the state valuation
Right.
of Raymond versus Wyndham. That's why we pay so much right now.
That's why that number is right up there.
And last year's increase, didn't Raymond pay a higher share?
Yes.
Yes.
We
than
went up,
that
we went up
4.8?
9%,
How much?
9.
9. So Raymond's action went up 9%, where the overall school budget went up 4.9%. Okay, all right, so I
From the
got my,
state EPS formula, though.
Correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it
Oh, yeah,
clear that
what
it
did
was
you
the
say?
sta- It's from the state EPS formula.
What
that
is?
made it that
What is?
increase.
No.
9%?
No,
Didn't our thing change
No.
because when they reformulated,
no.
they
No,
changed
it-
at the
No.
Based
state?
on that.
it's based on land valuation.
Land valuation,
Right, but, okay, but that's what I'm saying, that's how it was based on, it wasn't like the RSU said Raymond has to pay more. It was out of their control, is essentially what
no,
I'm
that's,
saying.
right. It's out of their
Yes,
control,
yes.
but,
I just wanted to make that clear, that's all.
okay,
Raymond had-
but,
I just didn't want it to sound like, and I'm not saying anyone was, but I didn't want it to sound like everyone can make assumptions, but I didn't want people to think that it was anyone pointing fingers.
Wyndham-
I was trying to
Wyndham had-
put you in the good there, Joe.
Wyndham had no
Just
control on
asking
setting the number.
questions.
Did you hear me? Wyndham had no control on setting the number, nor did we.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
That Raymond doesn't meet the minimum
Right.
No.
mill rate yet,
Right,
so that's why they pay more, because state says, you got more, you should pay more.
right. And that's also the reason we don't get any
Subsidy back.
subsidies. Thank you.
We're a 5%
Right.
receiver, I think.
Okay, Caitlin?
Those are old numbers, it's special ed.
Okay.
Your state subsidies primarily comes through special ed costs.
Okay, so now I'm coming over to my third slide, and this is what I think the actual cost will be. The state tuition rate, as I said before, today's rate, up 4. The students attending at tuition rate, 24, 22, and 182, because we're dropping off Wyndham, okay? We all okay with that? Teresa, you look puzzled.
Nope, nope, I'm good.
Okay. We need to add a special ed differential in there. One of the special ed numbers that we use, or has been suggested that we use by administration, is 17% of the population. So 17% of this 182 now becomes special ed qualified, financially qualified for this example. Another number that administration has recommended that we use is $10,000 per student in addition to this 11.5. My opinion is that's way excessive. I think that's a hip shot that was made. I'm not sure what foundation. I'm more familiar from my own personal experiences and experiences when Susan Gendron was running the show, is somewhere around 35, 33, 35%. This works out to be about 90%. For this purpose, I left it at the higher number. The choice differential still remains in effect because we will still have students at Hebron and at North Yarmouth and wherever it may be.
Can't Raymond set the policy on choice that we will pay no more than what you send your kid to Wyndham and you're responsible for the differential, which is the way it used to be?
It used to be.
That's the way it used to be.
And we'd have to get it back, I think, in order to change that.
But we would have to get back the control in order to do that, because Wyndham, the RSU right now just says whatever the private
Right.
school
Right.
charges us, we pay.
Right.
But before that, when Raymond had the choice, we said, we only pay what we would pay maximum to any school district, state rate. You're responsible for the difference.
They have some agreements, because I think that you saw the number of choice students. I think the number that we looked at was less than 50,000 for all the costs related to choice.
Yeah, it was around 45,000.
I think it was
somewhere.
45.
Right.
So if you take that number of students and you do the math, that it tells me there's some type of agreement in place
Right.
as to what Raymond, what RSU 14 will pay in addition to whatever rate. And
So right
for
now,
a
it's
lot
like
of-
2,000, you know, you have
Yeah.
24, it's around
Yeah,
$2,000
it's
a student.
2,000, 2,500 a student, so.
But,
And
but
some of
it-
those schools, that tuition rate is much, much higher
Oh,
than
sure.
that, as
Yeah.
you know.
but if Raymond takes control again, they'll be able to set the limit as to what they will pay.
They will have to negotiate that
No,
contract
actually,
with each of those.
the negotiation is with the parents.
Right.
The town would say, you know, we're
Oh,
paying,
you negotiate with the
yeah,
parents.
we're paying
This is what we pay that
this
go
is
to
what we're
RSU
paying.
14.
If it's above that, you're paying the differential.
Right.
Okay.
But that's what the parents did before, and it actually
Right.
worked, because the schools like Westbrook and Gray, they wanted the kids. So they would negotiate that price, and they would pay, they match what Wyndham was getting, or what the state, so it was awesome, and some of them sent buses at the time.
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden, it went away, and we're getting a bill now for
Yeah.
over and above.
Yeah, that's, okay. This is what we're paying now. I shouldn't say now. This is class of 19. This is a year backwards. Okay? So you can see what Poland's, for example, there's what their tuition rate is. Bring the header up.
I'm more worried about the private institutions like the Hebrons,
Mhm.
Gould Academy, the Wayne Fleets, the NYAs.
Yep. But that's what, to give you, for what it is, it is. And so our differential nets out to be around 10,000 right
Oh,
here.
the beach is expensive, wow.
Okay?
Yep.
Forget where it was. So this is the number that we'll be using with minor adjustments, plugging into the main formula for secondary high school, going into 2022. Questions? Answers? Okay. Okay? Okay.
Assumptions are assumptions, yes.
They are in fact assumptions, Ralph, yes.
Your next steps?
We're gonna start looking at other areas in the budget. I'm not sure which one we're gonna take next. I would like to take technology, but I'm not sure we're gonna be able to do that.
So-
The advantage that I'm going to take, the process that I'm going to take advantage of is that Randy's gonna be doing the budgets for Jordan Small and Raymond Elementary in the next couple months anyway, so let him do that kind of work for me, and then I'll be doing the central office stuff, which is facilities, and, you know, there's no reason for me to jump into what he's gonna do. And I frankly don't think we're gonna even go into that package. We're in other areas.
So Marshall, in your review of these budgets, the two biggest cost areas are tuition and personnel costs, I assume?
No.
No?
Well, it's hard to say yes to that, because when you say personnel costs, you mean district-wide, and I haven't even bothered to try to separate, you know, who's in what school, and what's in what school, and how much is
So when
administration.
Randy does the budget, you'll have the personnel costs.
I have numbers, but I haven't pulled them out.
Okay.
Right. Personnel would have to be high on the list, as opposed to maintenance or transportation or nutrition. Those would be lesser expensive. But as a blanket statement, you might be right.
Yeah, we'll be up around 70%.
That's what that was the number I remember, was
Maybe a
70% is
little bit,
personnel costs
maybe a little bit higher.
7% of what?
of the total
70%
budget,
of the total number.
I think it'd be a lot more than that.
more than that.
Okay? Nothing else? Okay. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you. Kate, have you, any more on the programs?
No, we had that one meeting, we have not met yet.
The program ball is in my court. She asked.
Yeah, the spreadsheet that. or
Right,
the-
she asked
the
what I
programs
asked her
that
to
you
do.
did, yeah,
I have
right.
that. Frankly, there is nothing on there that I'm surprised at, and there's nothing on there that's gonna increase any costs, or we're gonna cut out. There's an awful lot of stuff there, again, talking to administration, that would disappear because we took over. There will be costs, but I think a lot of the costs that are in that programming, with the exception of security, are already inborn in the system. Not concerned about any of that at all. And we'll go through them one by one as time goes by. There's one I don't know why you grounds and maintenance, I don't know what that was all about, but
I'd
that's,
have to look back in my notes, yeah.
but the thing like Jump Start and the bridge program, those are on board and they would stay on board.
So for clarifications then, for anybody that's curious, wondering, listening, or whatever, everything that is currently in schools as we see it will be carried over exactly the way it is right now. Because that is a big concern, that is a big question of people, that they're really afraid of losing something, but I'm taking it as nothing has been added in addition to this. So we are gonna have exactly,
No,
okay?
no. Let me take your word adding out and put in the word subtraction. It's not our intent to subtract anything that's there.
Right.
I'm adding things.
Well, no, but I mean, what's being transferred over now? Oh yeah, if we add more, that's great. But right now, I'm taking it as whatever Kate has come up with the programs is exactly what we have now. Because that's what everybody likes, that's what everybody's comfortable with. And if we add to it, it's only a bonus. We're not going down below the
That's a
minimum
better way of
what we
saying it,
have
yes.
now. Okay?
There's no subtractions in that list.
Because
Other
that,
than security, you had security in there a couple times, but that's another discussion.
yeah, but security's always been an issue that they've been bringing up anyways on it. But that's something that people are questioning and are worried, really worried that we are losing all these programs and everything. And so technically, we are just transferring over everything that we have there. I'm just clarification.
Nope, and I'm trying to think how to answer it correctly. The budget, the RSU 14 budget has 10 components to it.
Mhm.
A superintendent, that's fair game for us to look at. The assistant superintendent is up over $4 million, that's fair game for us to look at. What I'm not going to look at is what Randy comes up with. Jordan Small School, RES schools, there's no reason for us to get involved in that. There's no reason for us to be fooling around inside union contracts, nothing.
Yeah.
Everything that's in place stays in place, but there are other areas where we can make some cost savings. Facilities being one, because we're not paying for athletic fields.
Right, but I guess one of the things I'm trying to stress on is we have asked the public to say, what do you want to see in the schools?
Right.
And I know Kate brought up some things, Caitlin brought up some things about outdoor things, more getting out. I'm saying more outdoorsy stuff. That's what you said. That type of thing, and incorporate it in the curriculum. So anything that's added would be a cost, but we're not losing anything they currently have. I just want to make sure that's stressed.
No subtractions on that list that I have seen.
Okay.
No subtractions.
So then I don't want to hear anybody come back and say we're losing things, because we're not.
Well, we may lose a bus or two.
Well, okay.
Can I
Okay.
ask a question?
Sure.
Bree Bianchi, Tenny Hill. So with this proposal to remove ourselves from the RSU, we're saying that with the current projections, we're gonna maintain these programs, but would they eventually, as time progresses and maybe money gets tighter, what have you, are they gonna start to dwindle? And I know that's a projection we can't,
But that would be the new
Foresee.
school board.
Right.
that would be a whole
Yeah.
new school board.
Yes,
See-
so run for the
See,
school.
what you have to,
Okay.
what happens is,
Run for the school.
Okay.
the committee, the committee puts together the overall proposal.
Right.
That's what the town looks at and says, okay, yeah. But at the same time, you establish a school board. The school board is the one that's actually going to
Stays
integrate all those, and from a going forward standpoint, any program changes, anything like
Right.
that,
Would be all on
comes
them.
by virtue of the school board.
I'm gonna
Because
close this, okay.
that's the governing body for the school at that point.
It won't be any of us, it'll be a new
So-
school board.
Okay.
Now,
Well,
will people in town
Yeah,
have,
but
will
people
people
on
in
board,
town
yeah.
have input to the school board? Hopefully. I mean,
Yeah.
that's part of the whole thing, is trying to get, so that, people can have a bigger input into some of the things that happen there. And if you have a school board that's looking really effectively at just K through 8, Because by tuitioning the high school students out, that's picked up under the school board
Okay.
for the high school, you know, from the RSU. What we're looking at is we're saying, let's look at K through 8. What is it that we want that thing to look like? What is it that the people want that to look like? You know, and this is where we keep, you know, we're keen to get the inputs is, what is it you like? What is it you don't like? If there's something you don't like because something's not happening, that's something we can, you know, that we can look at. We can build that into the proposal and say, yeah, we want to do that too. And here's what the cost is going to be for that. Here's what we've allocated for that. So now when the town votes yay or nay, they're going to have that budget that says, to do all these things that we said we want to do, and that we're going to do, here's what's going to cost us.
Just to reemphasize that point, my job here is to come up with a one-year budget, get us in the game. You know, and then the school board takes over, because the school board will be in place, I would assume, day after we take over.
We vote.
Pretty quickly.
Withdraw, and then we have to vote again. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Marshall.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kate, have you tried to arrange anything with the PTO to have them gauge parents' inputs and things like that?
No, but are you on the PTO?
You're just as much as anybody else.
Yeah, I know, I haven't gone to those meetings, but
I would think we could.
I can talk to,
Like, we could do a survey and send it out via,
I can talk to,
I have a pretty substantial email list and send
I mean,
it to the
because-
email list and via the Facebook page.
I mean, the other resource that we have, and I don't want to volunteer, but I'm going to volunteer, is for Mark to, you know, if you can, you know, if we can get organized a thing with the parents, the PTO, whatever it may be, he'll be more than happy to come and help moderate that or whatever to try and get those inputs. What we're trying to do is get the inputs. What is it people want? What is it they don't want? And, you know, because all we can do is put together based on the inputs that we're getting. The more inputs we get, the better shot we have at putting together a program that is what people want it to look like.
Do they have examples as to what, like, is there a questionnaire?
You know better.
If we're looking to gauge those inputs, are there examples from other districts that we could get that people have done? Is there a questionnaire, is there a survey that we could be using for this, instead of having to reinvent the wheel?
I might have something.
'Cause I mean, I just
Um,
wouldn't know what to ask, I guess.
Usually the way we've done it, and I gave folks here the typical committees that are part of the process to identify all the issues and questions. And then usually we meet with those subcommittees, but I may have a survey or something that might be helpful. for
I
people.
would think that there are several ways we could reach more people in town through a variety of email lists that different folks have that we could
We took the
probably-
list from, that Kate gave us and sat down with the superintendent and asked for clarification about what are the things that, are these existing and will they continue to exist after Raymond withdraws? And we went item by item through. And a lot of those are programmatic things that are gonna stay in place. There won't be any changes, like the reading program and the math program and all those things,
The
and the
bridge,
materials
Jumpstart.
related to support that. I think that, you know, Marshall mentioned an SRO, a school resource officer, and security-related issues, and we talked with Chris about that, and there's definitely on their agenda. They believe there needs to be some modifications to enhance building security. And then there were the whole area, sports recreation, that was discussed, and I think Marshall mentioned that the town of Raymond is looking at a recreation director and a recreation program. And I think the other issue that came up with the group was school nutrition. There's a very popular chef and school nutrition director that does a wonderful job planning meals. I mean, the biggest complaint I have from kids is I don't want to eat in the cafeteria, but I'm sure that's the case here. Things are maybe better than most schools.
So I guess
so
I was
all
just,
those things that we just,
I was just responding to the question about can we get more parental input, and I think the answer is yes, and I'd be happy to help facilitate
Please.
that through several things. If somebody could, I haven't been involved in these meetings, so I don't know the questions to ask. So if somebody can help me figure out the questions to ask, happy to help facilitate that
Thank you.
information.
Thank you.
Now, doesn't the town have that new insert they do with Wyndham Eagle?
Mhm.
Can't you put a blurb in there about if you're interested in the withdrawal, here's somewhere to send input?
Click on a link, maybe to fill out a survey or something.
Can we do that?
It goes in
somehow?
once a month.
I believe the deadline's in 2 weeks, and Kayla puts that together.
So there's a deadline in 2 weeks,
I
so.
Well, it's every other
For
week.
the
that-
Jan,
Every other week that goes in, so if it's,
no, it's only.
No,
That's
once a
once a
month.
month.
Once a month.
it's every other once a month.
Yes, it's every other one.
That's what it said.
I thought I heard
Get
you
it.
say once
Get
a
it.
month.
That's, I did say once a month.
Yep.
I don't know if Ralph Bartholomew, off Patricia Avenue, Raymond. I need you to refresh my memory. Is with the primary purpose for initiating the Raymond withdrawal from RSU 14, was it primarily based on the presumption that Raymond was paying too great a share of the cost of education of our students? Was it primarily economics-based, or was it dissatisfaction with the programming that was being offered to Raymond students in RSU 14?
I think it's the money that was being gone towards other things, like a transportation garage. There was modulars put down there that they could have been sent up here. The kids could have been up here, so that's cost
Yep.
is gone. We also had an agreement with the school that said that any new footprint would go to the town that bears that footprint, and we have been charged for more stuff than
So
what we
it's
should
more
have.
about just the fairness of
Yeah.
the
And
negotiation.
the lack of say, I believe, is what it is, yeah.
Lack of say in the negotiation and
Yeah.
in the determination of what our allocation is. But wasn't it necessarily a general dissatisfaction with the nature of the programming that the
No,
students got?
not at all,
So,
not at
uh,
all.
But when
Well, I
you
would
think-
disagree with that.
I don't, and with me doing the petition, I have nothing at all as far as the programming of the schools, or the teachers, or anything like that at all.
And I can understand, parents may, and we certainly can get information as best we can on, the promises or assumptions that, everything that you currently have, you will have, and parents will be happy. And maybe we don't hear from them now during this survey period, but we certainly would hear from them, the day after the new programming was instituted. So, we'd all be subject to that. But I'm just trying to understand that how much of this drive is being affected by this feeling of dissatisfaction with Raymond not feeling fairly on even footing with the rest of the RSU with regard to negotiating our fair share. I understand.
That to me is huge. And
Yep.
again, I guess what you're saying on it too, I have to stress too, is we just get and do that first year.
Sure.
It's parents still stepping forward and coming forward to say what they
Yep.
want to continue in the schools with the school board,
And-
with the new school board.
And a lot of, this has to be based on assumptions, and assumptions about, the cost, and assumptions about the, the quality of the programming, as it's instituted, and what happens over time. We don't have a history. We disconnected from that work a number of years ago, and assumptions can be wrong. And what are the implications of being wrong in this? There's no going back to the folks we just separated from. So
Well-
it'll be making the best of the situation we're in.
Well, let me disagree with you there, Ralph.
Yep.
Our negotiation is with Wyndham.
Correct.
Our students are going to continue to go to Wyndham,
I get that.
okay? So there's no dissatisfaction with the Wyndham program or what's going on there.
No, I get that.
It is about the economics and why Raymond is paying such a hefty share when you look at the numbers and we have
I see it.
minimal amount of
Yeah.
students,
Uh,
So we're paying, 35% of the cost, is
Yeah.
that right, out of the total school budget?
Right.
you know, yet I think we're only sending, what, 20% of the students
The
there?
total population
So-
is 3118, and we sent
Yeah,
600.
you're right, and you can't argue with that
So,
reality.
I mean, everybody makes assumptions, Ralph. You make the assumptions
Yep.
based on your best information you have.
Correct, I get it, yeah, I
So-
get it. So, and
But there's another factor that comes in too, is that it still is not operating as an RSU.
Right.
It is operating as a Wyndham school and a Raymond school. That scenario never changed. You know, the other day, in the last meeting, there was a discussion about, well, you know, the program in the middle school is different here than it is in Wyndham. That should never be. In RSU, you have a program. It doesn't matter
Yep.
if you're in school X or school Y, the program is the same. That's what your programming person makes sure is done. That's not what's happening. We have excess space here. They're putting modulars in there because they do not want to send their kids to Raymond. So you never have had the RSU in its truest sense. You've had a combined accounting system with two schools.
You have to take out the name Raymond and Wyndham and make it that RSU and see what you have as far as buildings and schools and I brought that up in a meeting years ago down there and literally I got booed. And you know what, I'm fine with that, but it's like, you know what, if you're gonna make it an RSU, make it an RSU. I mean, our sports teams are the same way, or right now, do you know what I mean? One's playing in one division, one's playing in another division. You know, so make it an RSU if you're gonna do it.
Well, and I don't understand all of those particulars. The only recent history is the history that we have, you know, the reality that we have with the students that have passed through, whether it's a real RSU or a small RSU,
Right.
lowercase. You know, that is what people see, and, you know, we'll judge you know, with the results of if this plan moves forward, they would judge the programming, the subsequent programming, in an independent Raymond school system to what they had before, and either want to duplicate it or improvement or whatever. But there's some potential that, you know, there's risk associated with that, like any other decision, and it may be two steps back with regard to programming before we start moving forward. So that's all. That's what I could potentially see in my mind, just because there's so many uncertainties around cost assumptions and programming. Like anything, you got to sometimes you take risks, but you always want to know you know, what's your fallback plan if you're wrong.
Right.
You know, whether it's your cable bill or your cell phones, or, you know, or the bank you choose, and we all make decisions about going different directions, and, you know, we think we get improved service or cost savings, but it's always it would be good to have some idea of what happens after the die is cast, and if we voted for this substantial change in education and programming, you know, what assurances, you know, to eliminate some of these assumptions can we have that, you know, that we can have everything we want at less cost, if that's the ultimate goal here. That's all.
Well, and I don't think it's the less cost. I think it's saying what is happening in our own town. And I think one of the things I'm noticing, no matter what it is across the board right now, is trying to get people to come out to things, come out to volunteer.
Absolutely.
To come out to put their input to any of this stuff. And I know, you know, the people that don't want this, people that do want this, then if we do choose to go and do withdrawal, then the people need to come out and say what they want for their schools, and they need to push for it. They need to volunteer for it. They need to step up and come in and voice their opinions and offer to help and stuff like that. And you're right, there is always risk.
Yeah.
My
If they
biggest-
don't, because
Right.
if they don't come forward and step forth and come forward,
Then it's on them too.
and
You know what I mean? So
and
they
the
have no
results
right
will
to-
be what they are.
Rolf
So,
always says, they have no right to complain at all if that's the case, but my fear is if they go and renegotiate this contract again with our percentage, we're gonna be paying a lot more, you know, for the less.
you have a better chance of hearing from parents when their students are in a new situation, so.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could, so Kevin Oliver, I've been in the town for 7 or 8 years now, and I've got a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old. I've got 2 young kids that would be going through this school program. change is always very scary because there are assumptions. There's, well, what if we don't assume the right way? But that's one way to look at it. For me, maybe I'm just naive, young family man or whatever, but I kind of look at this as we felt like we were getting a raw deal, or maybe the economics proved that this was one way that we could look, and I kind of look at it as a new opportunity. Sure, we can't have any, we can't be sure that our assumptions are correct, but if we do our job to involve the public, and if I do my job on this subcommittee, and we really go over the details and don't cut any corners, I think we can get to a point where we have a pretty good first step. And I don't think we need to look at this as the possibility of taking 2 steps back before we go 1 step forward. I mean, we could potentially, if we all do our job and involve the public and do this the right way, we could come at this with just a seamless transition and maybe even 1 step forward. So I understand the concern of the public, and as a young father and a member of this town, I want to do everything I can to be a positive impact on this move as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I know that there's a lot of concern and there's a lot of fear of the change, but speaking for me personally, I've got kids that are going to go through this program here in a few years, and I want to make sure it's the best program that it can be. So that being said.
Okay. Mark?
You know that we didn't ask for this marriage. You know that, right?
My name's Jody, I just live up on
I'm not finished,
Broadway.
I'm sorry. No, please stand, please
No,
stand.
that's okay.
As I get deeper and deeper and deeper into this, there are enhancements that we have lost that I plan on building back into the budget. Okay, and that's why I disagreed with you earlier. We're not
I
limited to that.
I agree with you on that then.
Okay.
I do agree with you.
To name 2, I think we're really lacking in STEM programs in these 2 schools. We could do a lot more. And gifted and talented, just to name 2. And I am prepared to come in with a budget that maybe is a little bit higher than what we're paying now, as long as those increases are reasonable and satisfactory, and it's going to benefit the kids. Okay? Not opposed to do that at all, Ralph, and I may get shot right out of the water, but we're working on one now that's a pretty good expensive enhancement. Thank you.
Agree.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No problem. My name's Jody, I just live up the road on Rockwood Acres. I have 3 kids that would potentially come through the schools in elementary now. And sorry for coming a few minutes late. I have 2 questions. The first one is, can you help me understand the nature of the tuition reimbursement if someone decided not to stay in the district, or how that works if someone did decide to go out of district today, if they didn't go to Wyndham, and if this doesn't happen? Is that a question that makes sense to you? Because as a new resident 3 years ago, sort of the thought is, well, if you choose not to go to Wyndham High School, then there's a reimbursement that you can apply to your comment earlier about the private schools. Why was you concerned about the private schools, and what does that look like in this dynamic today or in the future?
So what happens, Raymond has retained choice, which is what we had prior to the RSU, because we've never had a high school in town. We've always tuitioned students to high school. But we had a contract school that said that they would take students, but we gave, people had the option, if they did not want to send them to the school we had the contract with, to send them to a different high school.
Okay.
Be it, the latest one we had was with Wyndham. But they had the opportunity, they could send them to Poland, they could send them to Brigham and Gloucester, they could send them to Westbrook, they could send wherever. And prior to the RSU, what we did is we said, okay, we have a contract rate with Wyndham. That is the amount that the town will pay. If that school is going to charge more than that, the parent will be responsible for that differential that's above the contract rate that we have.
Okay.
So that's how school choice was working there. When the RSU came in, all of a sudden we still had school choice, But that rule that we had, which said anything that was above what the contract rate was, the parents were responsible, that disappeared. So now what was happening is the town is getting billed back from the RSU for that differential. So the theory would be that if we then separate again, then we can reinstitute the policy that says, you know, if you want to send someone there, because, you know, suppose you want to send, right now, you could, if you send someone to, and our tuition rate is set at, say, $11,000, you send them to a $21,000 school, we're going to get billed back $10,000. What would happen in going forward is you say, okay, you can still send them to that 21,000 school, but you, the parent, are going to be responsible for that differential. Because that was your choice to use that, because we have a perfectly good school that you can send them to, and we have a guaranteed rate there. So that's how that whole school choice works, and the whole tuition setup works. And that way you also have the ability to look at it and say, when you're trying to establish your budget each year, you can say, okay, we have 24 kids that are going out, but we don't really care, because all we're concerned with, we have 150 kids that are going to high school, and we know that figure is X amount per student. So it gives us more, it gives us a better, a more financially sound approach to that, because otherwise you're dealing with this variable that you don't have control over.
Exactly. So the decision that I know a few of my peers in terms of families would try to make as part of their decision to support or be against it is, well, I will send my kids to private school when they get to grade 6 anyway. Or, so that's the discussion. They don't need to wait till they get to high school.
They have to be high school to go to that private school.
I'm saying just
Yeah.
in general, they would pay financially for them to go today, knowing that something like this would or wouldn't happen, you know, to make that change. So that's why I asked the question, do you have a sense of a percentage of the residents that send their kids to private school anyway, independent of the high school? I
Well,
probably
we have-
missed it, sorry.
We have 24 of 600 students.
Okay.
190
Okay.
being high school level. 24 going to other schools, and if I remember correctly, without bringing it up, 3 went to Hebron, 1 graduated this year, and 2 are at North Yarmouth. The others are there's 1 at Poland, there's 1 in Westbrook, there's 1 in Waynfleet, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, okay. Yeah, I apologize.
The only other thing is by state law, or by state and federal, we cannot pay tuition to a religious school.
Right.
So
Right.
if they elect to send them, say, to Catherine McCauley or
It's no longer
Chevrolet,
Catholic.
then that is totally out of their pocket, because, and that got adjudicated up through the Supreme Court a number of years ago,
Okay.
so.
Well, I mean,
Those
now
numbers aren't in
now
there.
that Macaulay is the main girls' academy, I think you
That's
can
close.
pay.
Probably could.
That's close to.
Yeah, that didn't.
Oh, that closed too?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The good thing is you can negotiate with some of the superintendents too to get,
For the tuition rates?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, yeah, and that's what was happening back in the day there, is that, you know, people would say, well, you know, listen, I want to send the kids here, but they're only gonna pay this much, and the
Yeah.
superintendent would say, you know, I mean, it's essentially it's variable cost to them at that point, so they say, yeah, well, all right, we'll take them in at that rate, because there's 1 or 2 people, and, you know, that's extra money in our pocket, we're happy, because they're not adding any services in onesie twosies, but when you're adding, you know, when Wyndham has got it calculated in a different way, because they're saying, okay, we'll take your whole block, so they know when they're staffing up for teachers and whatnot, they have to do it based around those numbers.
And
Just to
so,
give you a history,
okay,
10 years ago, the town of Raymond had a vote on whether or not to allow school choice.
okay.
It passed 80% in favor of school choice. So that's why the town has always been a choice school. As a matter of fact, NYA used to be the contract school for Raymond back in the 60s.
and the only way to get rid of that school choice is you have to have a town vote again to do it.
Okay,
Yep, the board can't do it.
okay.
Which is not combined with this vote.
No, we're gonna have choice. Choice isn't even, yeah, choice is still always.
We're not
gonna be-
voting on
yeah.
choice at all.
No, yeah, no, that's always there.
And so, I probably missed this too, and I apologize. The cost of building the school, you're gonna build a new school?
No,
Oh, what school are you gonna use? I missed that.
For the high school, you mean?
Yeah, for
No,
the
high school, we're.
We're contracting with Wyndham to be our contract school. So kids have a contract school, which would be Wyndham, but you still have choice to go anywhere else.
So they go up through 8th grade here,
Yep,
and then they
Yep.
decide what they wanna go from
Yep.
there. And what they do from there is, they would be bused down to Wyndham High School at a certain place from Raymond if they choose to go there
By state law, you have to have a contract school
for 10 years.
for 10 years. We're negotiating with Wyndham as part of this process to continue to be our contract school.
so, maybe I'm just ignorant. What's the point from a parent's perspective if your kid's still gonna go to Wyndham? Am I gonna pay less taxes based on the figure of 22.1 million
necessarily.
versus 3.5?
Not necessarily.
So why would you do this if
Local
your kids are still
control.
going to Wyndham?
Would you want more say in your school?
I don't feel like I don't have a say right now. And if I'm satisfied with the programming and alternately have a choice to go private, it doesn't, I mean, is my tax bill going to go down by, proportionate to the savings per student or for the overall budget if this gets approved?
I think our taxes right now for the school budget is about 83 or 84%, and then the rest is municipal is what it is. The chances of it going up higher on the school end of it, I think, what did our school budget just go up? It's like
$9 million.
$900,000?
Right.
Yeah, so what happens is, and that's not usually, it jumped pretty high for us. And we don't get a lot of subsidy because we are, I wanna say.
Property rich.
Yeah, property rich is what it is. But in this case is, if they negotiate again, because the first time we wanted to do this withdrawal, we negotiated a pretty good deal that we weren't paying 50% is what it is.
Okay.
We got a lower percentage based on what we did. And we also, they were talking about building a new school. We don't need a new school in Wyndham if we've got 2 schools up here that are partially used. So what we were asking is utilize what we have. But, Raymond's a great town, Raymond's got great schools, let's utilize this. So we end up getting a contract with them that says any new footprints would be borne by the town. Also, the percentage rate dropped. That percentage rate is based on property taxes and the percentage of kids. It's kind of a combination they came up with. That contract part is going to be expiring here. So they're going to negotiate again, and they can look at it any way they want, the school board. And our school board has 9 members on it, 3 Raymond, 6 Wyndham. So no matter if all 3 of our Raymond residents voted towards Raymond, they'd still lose, unless a couple Wyndham people did. So we really don't have a say. We really don't. As far as the programming goes, we're not asking for any of that programming to be changed.
That's not an issue for me.
No, it's not.
As if my property tax bill is in excess of $8,400 annually, $6,800 of that this year went to the school.
Mhm.
And so if you're saying to me that that same money will give us the ability to choose programming for these 2 schools here, and I'm already happy with the programming, I guess I'm not sure why the public needs to be involved, quite honestly. Like, that's just my personal opinion. Why do I need to be involved in support of it I get the ability to choose and the economics. I understand everything you've described tonight. And it's not that I'm not appreciative of the work and just don't have the array of really the difficulties. But just speaking from a resident, attending the schools, making the decision, are my kids going to be in this school? Am I happy with what's happening here? Or I'm going to send them out. I'm just in a different, I guess I'm just making decisions based on different criteria than what you're talking about, because I might leave tonight feeling like everything's going to stay the same from the perspective of me choosing this school and then the Jordan Middle School and the high school. My kids will still go to Wyndham, and my taxes that I would pay quite literally would stay the same. I'm very happy with the nutrition program. I'm very happy with all those things. I would leave tonight not feeling like there's any benefit to me for us to separate, and that's just my opinion, and I probably don't understand it as well as you all do, but I think that's a common, there's not a great depth of understanding of what the actual detail of what the separation would literally provide to the person who gets up, takes their kids to school, comes home, likes that they have special ed access, likes that the school classroom sizes are small, likes the nutrition program, likes the distance from their house. I love the schools. I like the way that they are, and so I guess I was kind of surprised to hear that you say that there wouldn't be a separate high school. Because that
But
kind of
you
feels
know,
like.
to have a high school for 190 kids is not practical.
I agree. Yep. So anyway, that's feedback that might not be as welcomed as.
No,
otherwise
no,
would
it's
be.
always welcome,
Um,
yeah, please, yeah.
I think you kind of answered your own question by saying that you're happy with what you're getting now.
Yep.
As a parent, I would not be happy with what I have because I think that the programs in the two schools over here can be enhanced. And I don't think they're taking advantage of all the enhancements that's available because I think that the Wyndham, the Board of Education and the Wyndham school budget process limits what they can offer over here. And I don't think that Raymond would be in a position to
But-
make those limits.
But then that would be great information to provide to the public to say, hey, these are the enhancements that we've had
That's-
approved.
yeah, that's exactly what we're
And this
working
would
on.
be some actual
Yeah.
tangible benefit.
That's where we're at now.
Yeah.
And with all due respect, you're hearing voices from people that have kids currently
Oh, I
in the
understand that,
system.
totally, yeah.
So for you to say it's broken, but for the majority of the parents that have kids in the system say they like it the way it is the writing's on the wall, if you ask me.
You don't know what you don't have.
But I also don't want to risk those 2 steps backwards if I am unbelievably happy with the way things are.
Then in that
'Cause
case,
that's my
everything.
kid that's at risk.
Right, but the programming is all gonna be there. It's all gonna be there. So the next school board.
For
And the
one
staff.
year,
Do it.
for
And
one
the
year,
staff.
Right.
for Marshall's 1-year budget, the program will be there.
But then it's
But
then
that's
it's
up to the
parents'
school board who are elected from
Okay,
people in Raymond.
but again,
Do you-
now we're putting
Yeah,
risk
no, that answers
at
my
that.
question.
No,
I-
but you see how you come up,
But-
we're trying to
but
get more
okay,
people
but
out.
if we
Absolutely.
back that up-
Absolutely,
If we
because
could-
if there was
Same back and forth.
enhancements
Right.
that, you know, something more than where they're at today, we have a little bit of a different family dynamic, which is more on the special needs side, so we would be interested in some of that. Every family's gonna have different things that they're interested in. If someone came to me personally and said, hey, your child would have access to, programming that would support children that had special needs without a state IEP that's been implemented through CDS or other, that would be important. So there's other things that I think are hot buttons for people that maybe are difficult. The school's doing a phenomenal job with, you know, the limitations that they have as far as the way things are set right now. And I would welcome any of that type of, you know, if you're talking about, you know, we're just getting to that point, I would be eager to see anything that would be in addition to that. But again, it's just, you know, have conversations with our peers, and maybe there's just not a great understanding, so I appreciate that level of
We
detail.
see it.
But let me just,
Yeah.
you know, Kate, you said, you know, that's 1 year. But that presupposes that a school board for Raymond would operate under different laws than the school board for the RSU. The school board, for the programs and things in the school board for the RSU are good only for that year too.
Sorry, I got distracted. Sorry, I have to say that again.
Everything in any of the programs is only good for that year until it's reauthorized for the next year. So there's nothing that says that a new school board doesn't come into the RSU and decide they're gonna arbitrarily change everything either. So, you know, it's gonna operate under the same laws as the RSU board does. So to say that, well, just because we put this in, if you're gonna elect a school board, to say that they're gonna just throw everything out, the
That's
same
school board's
exact thing
choice.
could happen with the RSU.
Right.
Okay. Sure, but you're also looking at 3 possibly brand new school board members, where with the way we have it now, you're never having a completely new school board.
Well, it's, you know, but, you know, again, you know, you're taking, you know, what we're doing is we're taking, you know, we're taking the policies and everything that are coming from there, so, you know, the programs are coming, you know, so to change, you know, it's like changing the direction of an ocean liner. You don't do it right, you can't be, you know, if you brought it into the school board, you know, are they gonna scrap everything? That's not a realistic scenario. The scenario is, okay, maybe we work around the edges on some things because we think we can improve this or that ever, but they're not gonna take and throw the whole kit and caboodle out. Because, you know, That would be.
I would think that if a new school board comes in and starts to remove stuff that we put in, there'd be a little bit of resistance there.
Mark and Dan, a new school board that would get elected would probably be elected to staggered terms, I would assume.
Yeah.
And you have to decide whether it's a 5-member or 7-member school board.
And so it
Exactly.
starts out like, I think 5, but you can make it bigger, right? Or does it start out smaller,
Starts
like
3, then
3?
you can.
Starts at
That's
3,
at
but
3.
you
Right,
can
so
make
it's-
it
I knew it was one, it was
as,
one.
yeah.
We would recommend 5.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what it used to be.
Yeah, 5.
Hi, Bree Bianchi. I had a bunch of stuff prepared, but I'm just kind of thinking about, I'm a teacher, I've been teaching in Falmouth for 15 years, and my husband grew up here, we have kids in the district, we love what our kids are getting. I think what I'm hearing, I'm just taking a lot of information in, and I think what I'm hearing is, I think I get worried mostly, and I understand that a lot, once we pull ourselves, or if we pull ourselves out of the RSU, a lot of that control goes to like a school board and more kind of, kind of just more local. I think my biggest concern is, like in the interim, as we're looking at those things, I'm also looking at teacher contracts, and because I worry, I just get worried for teachers feeling uncertain. Because we know that if teachers are feeling as if they don't have, they're not sure. I think being part of the RSU, there's a little bit more security there in my personal opinion, but I don't know much about things in that respect. But being in a district where I feel secure because I've been there and I know that I'm there, there's some choice, there's some flexibility between bringing a teacher from Wyndham and sending a teacher from Raymond to Wyndham. I think what I get worried about is the uncertainty, because I don't want teachers to feel as if they're wondering, or am I going to be in this position next year? Because that teacher uncertainty makes me concerned for our students. Because when you look at their ability to have that flexibility, that security, you have happier teachers and you have more engaged students, all of those things. So I feel what makes me worried is with this coming down the pike, sure, eventually, we might be in a great place, but what's gonna happen in the interim? That's the most concerning part.
The teacher contracts roll over to Raymond.
They roll over.
And they will all be honored.
Okay.
Yep.
So if there's negotiations going on now, I think. Kate?
There are, yes.
Yeah, they'll give us
Right?
like 3
Okay.
years.
Whatever the contract, if it's a
Okay.
3-year contract, that rolls over.
So if it's a 3-year contract that rolls over, who then decide, is it then once if we are our own entity,
Yeah.
after that 3 years?
There's a negotiation that goes on with the school board.
It's all school board. I
Yeah.
mean, so we're really looking at ultimately this 5-person school board being
Do what
at
school
the
boards
helm of it
do.
all.
Right.
Yep.
Will we have do we have a superintendent, or is it like school board directed? I guess I'm just kind of
You have a
wondering.
superintendent.
We do?
Yep.
Okay.
We will.
We will.
Yep.
Okay.
But
All right. Just,
can I ask you, how long have you been in town?
have I been in town?
Yeah.
14 years.
Okay, so you were here prior to the RSU?
And prior to having children in the.
Yeah.
in
So,
the
so, I
schools.
mean, so you're aware of how it operated when we had our own school board and.
A little, because I was, newly married and working, so I was just involved
But I
in
mean,
my
you know,
little bubble.
The one position that Raymond is in, that a lot of other school areas were not in when they went through separations, is we have a track record of having run our own schools for years and years and years
My
and years.
husband's grew up here, so yes.
And so,
He knows.
Yeah,
the wherewithal of a school board, the wherewithal of what has to happen in there, that resides inside, in the town has that industrial, or that knowledge.
okay.
The issue is, as it always is getting good people to run for the positions.
Mhm.
And that is, it's an issue in the RSU, getting good people to run there. It's an issue here, if you bring good people into the position, they're going to make the thing thrive.
Mm.
Same thing with support staff. Any contracts that are negotiated will be honored.
Okay.
That contract is finished. The education contract is in negotiation now, but
Yep.
support staff is done. I just want to make it clear what I said before, that, and I'm going to put the ball right in Randy Crockett's pocket. Whatever he comes up with is good with me. It's up to us, and I have things that I'm going to add on to that.
Okay.
And our subtractions come in facilities management, which we have 2 schools, they have 5. We don't need to be paying part of the freight for those other schools, things like that. There are savings in that area.
So if we were to bus kids still with school choice over to Wyndham,
Yep.
would we have our own, we'd have our own bus troop that would
Yep.
kind of,
Right.
so it'd be housed here, it wouldn't be housed over there?
They are
it'd be
housed here
something-
now.
They are?
Yep.
Yeah, they don't go
Yes.
down, and what they do is they meet at Mill Street.
Right.
And then
Right.
Wyndham comes up, and then they do the same thing back. Yep, we'd have all of our own buses, we'd have our own vans.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm also looking to technology-wise too, as we're looking, you know, we have children that are very different than 10 years ago, very simply 20 years ago. You know, because back when the whole thing, when this whole process began, I heard a lot of that, you know, we were great 20 years ago, and schools are, having worked in a school for 15 years, schools, students, society are remotely different than what they were, you know, 20 years ago. So I look at the piece with technology and really making sure that is a huge part, because I think my biggest concern, you know, and I don't know as much as, you know, financially and fiscally what have you, but I guess my biggest concern is putting our students at a disadvantage. And I think, and, you know, that's where I get kind of worried. And hoping that, and I understand the school board piece will be obviously a big part if we do pull away from the RSU, if it does kind of come to fruition, that having a solid school board that supports what the public supports is very important. But again, it's kind of like, you know, as a parent with young children and, you know, supporting our teachers, there's a little bit of that, not really sure.
No,
So
but
that's
this
just
is
very
good that you're doing this. This
normal
is good that we're
feeling.
hearing it.
Just to give you an idea, I've lived in Raymond 40 years. I served on the school board, I was school board chair. There's one budget that has been turned down. One school budget in 40
Right.
years that has been turned down because they asked for a 12% increase in that school budget. That is the only school budget I remember. Ralph, correct me if I'm wrong. That is the only one, and that was back in 1991.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So Raymond has always been very supportive of schools.
Okay.
The other thing too is you're gonna have 5 people of Raymond residents
Make
on a
it-
board
Versus
for just
versus
Raymond
Wyndham.
compared to
Yeah.
9
Right.
with 6 that are looking at over. So you've got them dedicated to the people that are in this town, in the school system, with kids or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Caitlin LaCase, Tenny Hill. I do think there's value in looking at what the possibilities could be, but I did just want to say that we have 3 young kids. One of them is now in 1st grade, and we have been very impressed with the school as we've experienced it. And I do think somebody just said, you know, you don't know what you don't have, and I think most of us parents are savvy enough to know exactly what maybe we don't have or what we could have.
Tell us.
And well, I actually have a good example. So Teresa mentioned, you know, I mentioned the last meeting that I thought it would be valuable for our students to get out more outdoors. There's research that demonstrates that makes them a more successful student. And so I met with Ms. Peavy, and she is working with me now to help make that happen. We don't need to be a different district to make some of these changes that we all want to see, and I think that is, it's not done yet, but I'm assuming we're moving forward. And we have a meeting to, you know, to keep moving forward, and you know, it is not, I think people have a tendency to overcomplicate things, and I think if we said, okay, we need, as parents, if there was a program that we wish was a little bit different, or if we saw something we wanted, that there was opportunities for change, that you don't need to throw the baby out with bathwater here. I think you can make a lot of these changes within the current structure, and I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
And I just have one more burning question. And does this broadcast into Wyndham? If so, I'll whisper. If not, I'll whisper. But
No, but they can watch it, yeah.
and we've thrown around a lot of numbers, and I know they're assumptions. But what's on the table for Wyndham if financially, if we separate?
I always considered us a cash cow to Wyndham. That's just my personal opinion, though.
Is there a number? I mean, it's a big number, isn't it?
For Wyndham.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you've got to, there's two sides of that equation, Ralph. If you look at it from the standpoint of right now, it's working out that we're paying about $17,000 per student. If you look at the other side of that equation, Wyndham's paying about $9,000. Okay, so what'll happen is their per student cost will probably increase, ours would decrease. But they're also getting rid of administration on 2 buildings, and things like that. So they've got some cost saving offset from that side, that standpoint too. But would effectively their per pupil cost increase? Probably, because they're not getting this a bigger infusion here into the budget. But I don't think it's not a bankrupting type of scenario. They'll still see some. But then if you look at if you read the papers, how many new housing units were they putting in? Planning there for the next 3 years. Somewhere upwards of 200 to 300 or 200 to 300
It's like
housing units.
333 that they just had out.
That's gonna increase.
Is the nature of the relationship between Wyndham and Raymond such that it's still open to negotiation, or is it locked and fixed in place, and we have to live with it, and we have to make plans accordingly, or is there always a potential that they could see themselves as not prepared to lose what they could potentially lose?
Part of the separation agreement that we're negotiating with them guarantees that we have the ability that they'll take our students for a 10-year, for at least a 10 or minimum of a 10-year period.
At a reduced per pupil cost.
At the state tuition rate. So I mean that's built in to the separation, and the DOE would not allow the separation to occur if that guarantee is not in place, either there or at some other school.
When we went through this process, 5 years ago now? 6 years ago?
No, just
5, 6 years ago. It was at the last minute that Wyndham came in and said, hey, how about this formula? And, and I chaired that withdrawal committee back then, and it was last minute that they came in with a better funding formula for Raymond that took us from 45% of the cost that we were paying down to 36, I actually think is the number right now. So there was that reduction. And as Wyndham students grow more than Raymond students, you saw the numbers, we're holding flat, but Wyndham students are growing.
Sure.
Yeah, there is a possibility of a new funding formula at the last minute, but I'm not holding my breath on it.
Okay, thanks.
Well, there's one more thing too that they've made it publicly clear down there too, is their town council, actually, and he is now the chair, said that there's no way that he will honor any kind of negotiation deal with us to work it out. He says we got such a good deal last time, and he says that he wants to have a say in it this time, and his name's Jarrett Maxfield. And he says, nope, he says he wants to be part of that talks. He does not want them to negotiate with us at all, and he did that on public, at a meeting. And but we haven't heard, as far as talks between, but like Joe says, could be last minute. And we backed out at the last minute. And not backed out.
No, we didn't back out. We opted that.
We opted, it was a good deal, and that's what was best for we thought the citizens and the kids. And now we just don't feel like it's being honored, so.
Other comments?
One more thing. I think another feeling that I have is I'm hearing that Raymond is feeling kind of alienated from this ability to choose. However, I worry about you know, this potential bad blood between Raymond and Wyndham and how that affects our students. You know, with all due respect, a bunch of adults kind of getting into the fray, and that possibly the kids will you know, they feel that, they hold on to it, and there's this, I don't know, I just really worry about that energy, you know, really dividing our community. So, you know, maybe it sounds like it's already been there for many, many years. But I guess what I'm feeling is if, how will this kind of community separation that we are continuing to push, how will that affect our kids? I mean, there's not really an answer to that. It's just my feeling. You know, my daughter goes to dance in Raymond. There's a lot of Wyndham kids. She's like really excited, but there's already even talk between the kids of like, oh, you're from Wyndham, oh, you're from Raymond. Again, maybe that's always been. You know, my husband went to Gray New Gloucester. His sister went to Westbrook. His other sister went to Wyndham. They were very separated. And there was that sense of like, we didn't have kind of a sense of like where we need to be. That's always been it here. But my daughter's excited to go to Wyndham, and she's excited to like be with her friends going through that process. And I know it's still a possibility, but I guess I just don't want to feel that, you know, our communities are even more split than they already are.
I don't think they are. I think Chris Howell is great. He's the superintendent. He has been awesome and he always has been, even as a principal. I think our teachers in the schools carry it very well. I really do. I don't think it's really, I see it in the schools because when you have a kid that's playing on a sport or whatever as a Raymond person compared to Wyndham, I really do feel like they've got to play harder. Do you know what I mean? Because of it, they've already been established in Wyndham growing up or whatever. But I think the teachers carry it very well. I think they keep it out of the schools. I think the superintendent does. And I think this is more at, I want to say the political level as far as the boards go, the school board, the select board, that type of thing, instead of in the schools.
You know, it's been my experience, that has always been there. You're a Raymond kid, we're from Wyndham.
Yeah.
And never worries about it more are the parents. The kids don't care. Because once my kids went to Wyndham, they fit in just fine. They did everything, you know, the sports, they did the singing, they did all that stuff. No one cared. And then when you're a parent and you're going to those concerts in Wyndham with all those Wyndham parents, you become friends with them, it all goes away. It's at that political level, at the town council, the yackers who say stupid things. Those are the only people who care. It's not the kids. It really has minimal effect on the kids. At least that's been my experience.
The Yackers, that was
The
good.
yackers.
Sorry, I should Caitlin LaCase, Tenny Hill. I just have one question. I heard somebody say that there would be are we looking at a full-time superintendent or a part-time superintendent?
I like how you guys think these out when you're up there. It's cool. You're working through them. You're working through your questions, your concerns, and yeah, I like that.
I mean, Raymond's always had a superintendent principal.
I think the
position.
superintendent that they had last time was 3/5.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But I really haven't looked at that, Caitlin, just to.
And that superintendent
makes
is not
sense.
responsible
That makes sense.
just for kids in Raymond. That
Right.
superintendent's also responsible for any tuition kids.
Right. I gotta tell you a story. I graduated from Falmouth High School. We hated the kids from Yarmouth. Then I married one.
Speeds it up, doesn't it?
This is on video, just by the way.
Other comments? We don't want to shut off comments.
No, we like these.
comments. I mean, because the only way we're going to know what people are
Right.
thinking is by you telling us what you're thinking. And then we can then, just, from a timeline standpoint, how things go. There'll be, we're still in information gathering at
Right.
certain levels to, on the program side and things like that, to come up with all that, to come up with a budget and whatnot. there'll be some public hearings ultimately on, okay, here's what the budget would look like and things like that. And then ultimately, the final piece in the puzzle is a vote that will occur in the November, probably at the November election. Do we want to do this or do we not want to do this? And that's, nothing is cast in concrete until that vote. And whatever the result of that vote is, that's what the result is. If you say, the answer is yes, we want to separate, then we separate. If the answer is no, we don't want to separate, then we don't separate. If there's no other comments, the next item on the agenda is going to be an executive session, so everyone will have to leave for that.
Thank you guys, seriously.
Thank you for
Yes,
coming.
thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I will make a motion to go into executive session under Title I, Section 405(6)E.
Second.
All those in favor?
E or F?
I'm sorry, I missed the second.
Thanks.
Kurt, wrestling excluded.
a motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
I'll make a motion that we submit a counter proposal to the RSU withdrawal to RSU 14, and that Joe Bruno be designated as someone who will be available for any final negotiations,
Second.
As well as Dan.
as well as our
Our Dan,
attorney,
yeah.
Dan Stockford.
See, he changes it. I
Is
second.
there a second?
Yep.
All those in favor? Okay,
Motion adjourned?
second. All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Right.